Hey everyone, I'm Mr. Skeleton. Today, we've got 10 true scary stories about winter night drives. But before we start, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and you can change your mind later. And if you've got any ideas for what the next video should be, feel free to drop them down in the comments. I just left my brother Callum's place up near Redlow Ridge. He's got a cabin that backs right up against the national forest, the kind of spot people rent out for the peace and quiet, though he actually lives there full time. I'd spent the weekend helping him with some firewood and small repairs. By the time I packed up, it was just past 9. I figured I'd beat the snow home if I didn't waste time. That night was different. It felt different before anything actually happened. Maybe 15-20 minutes in, I spotted a car pulled over at a bend. A dark sedan, no lights on, no hazards, parked weirdly half on the shoulder and half in a snowbank. Normally, I wouldn't have thought much of it. But something about the way it sat there was off. I slowed as I passed, just to check. The windows were all fogged up, but I could make out a shape in the driver's seat. Someone sitting upright. They weren't moving. No lights inside, no motion, not even a head turn, just still. I passed it, and then about 10 seconds later, something in my gut turned over. I pulled over, didn't even fully think it through. Just braked, reversed, stopped maybe 15 feet behind the car, and let my lights on. I sat there for a second, trying to talk myself out of doing anything. But I couldn't shake it. Whoever was in there might have needed help. I got out. The air hit colder than I expected. Sharp, dry cold. The snow around the sedan looked untouched. That was the first thing I noticed. Not a single footprint. No tracks, no drag marks, just perfectly smooth snow, like a sheet laid out flat. And someone was still in the driver's seat. They were sitting bolt upright, hands on the wheel, head perfectly straight. No slouch, no movement. I tapped on the driver's side window, nothing. Knocked a little harder, still nothing. Not a flinch. Then I noticed the frost. It wasn't on the outside. The inside of the windshield was iced over thin, white, spiderwebbing crystals across the glass. Not just fogged from breath, but actual frost, like the air inside had dropped below freezing. That didn't make sense. I leaned closer, trying to get a better look. And then he moved, not suddenly, slowly, like his neck resisted the motion. His head turned toward me, just a few inches, and then his eyes followed. Heavy eyes. It looked like they were too dense to move easily. He stared right at me. And then he raised his hand, pointed across the road toward the forest. That's all he did. I took a step back. Didn't ask questions, didn't try to make sense of it. I just got in my car and drove. I made it maybe another mile. Then I saw another one. Same make, same color. Same position, angled into a ditch on the right side of the road. But this one was almost buried, covered in old snow, like it had been sitting there for days. No fresh tracks, no tire marks, no footprints, just there. I didn't get out this time, just slowed to a crawl and looked. Same guy, behind the wheel, same posture, same direction of the head, same frozen stare. I didn't stick around, accelerated, and didn't ease up for a while. My hands started to sweat even though it was freezing out. I remember wiping my palms on my jeans without thinking, over and over. Maybe 10 minutes later, my headlights picked up something else. A figure in the road, just walking straight down the center line, like he owned it. Slow, steady steps, dragging something behind him. As I got closer, I saw it was a snow shovel. One of those old metal ones with the dented scoop and a worn wooden handle. The sound it made, this dry scraping over pavement, carried right through the windshield. I slowed down and rolled the window down just a crack. "Need help?" I called out. Voice came out quieter than I meant. He turned to look at me. His face was raw patches of red and pink, skin peeling in spots like windburn or frostbite. He gave me this weird little smile like he'd been expecting me. "You're going the wrong way," he said. Calm, not a warning, more like a reminder. Then he turned back around and kept walking. I rolled the window up and drove around him. That shovel dragged behind him the whole time I passed. After that, it felt like the road started folding in on itself. I saw the same sedan 2 more times, once stuck sideways between 2 pine trees, far off in the woods, no trail leading to it. Once parked perfectly in a clearing with nothing around it. No tire marks, no path in or out. Same man behind the wheel. Always him. Always looking ahead. I stopped checking after that. About 20 minutes outside town, the snow finally started falling. And when it did, it came hard. Fast, small flakes that piled up way quicker than they should have. Visibility dropped in seconds. I slowed to a crawl, but the tires still slipped every few minutes. It felt like something heavy was resisting the car, like I was dragging something behind me. And then the radio crackled on. I hadn't touched it, hadn't turned it on the entire drive. It fizzed for a few seconds. Then I heard a voice, deep, slow, unmistakably male. "You're almost there." That's all it said. I twisted the knob off, yanked it really. It clicked off, but the voice stayed in my head for a lot longer. Then, 5 minutes from town, it stopped snowing. Just like that. The road dried up, the air cleared, and the lights of Darren Falls glowed ahead like everything was fine. I was almost home when I saw the last one. Right in front of the gas station near my apartment complex, under the flickering sign for Brightmart, sat the sedan. Parked clean, engine running, headlights off, and beside it, leaning on that same battered shovel, was the man. He didn't wave, didn't move, just watched. His eyes followed me all the way past the intersection. I didn't stop, didn't even slow down. I parked, went inside, locked every single lock on the door, and sat in the kitchen with all the lights on until it got light outside. My shoes were still on. Next morning, I called Callum, told him everything. He started laughing, but halfway through he stopped, said something had been weird lately. His neighbor's dogs wouldn't go near the woods anymore, barked at the trees all night. Since then, I haven't taken Route 11. I just left my cousin Reed's place out near Mill Hollow, New Hampshire, a tiny town surrounded by frozen woods and winding back roads. He'd been laid up with the flu for a few days, and his girlfriend was out of town, so I brought him groceries, dropped off some meds, made sure he had enough tea and tissues to last until the weekend. He looked like hell but was still well enough to grumble about how much soup I'd brought. It was a Tuesday night, sometime around mid-December. Cold enough that the air hurt when you breathed in too deep, but the snow hadn't started falling yet. The drive back home was usually under an hour. I'd done it dozens of times, every holiday season pretty much. That stretch of Highway 17 is mostly a straight shot through woods and farmland, with barely any traffic late at night. I left Reed's place a little before 11, thinking I'd be back in my apartment by midnight if I didn't hit any patches of black ice. I remember the first part of the drive being completely uneventful. I had an old podcast playing, one of those laid-back crime shows where the hosts half-joke their way through weird historical robberies, and a thermos of chamomile tea sitting in the passenger seat, still hot. It was peaceful in that specific kind of winter night way. No headlights, no wildlife crossing the road, just silence and frost collecting at the corners of the glass. And then I saw the car. It came into view about 20 minutes into the drive. A tan sedan, a little beat up, probably late 90s. It was up ahead, weaving just slightly, not enough to look drunk or dangerous, just a bit too loose in the lane. I instinctively eased off the gas, kept a good distance behind it, figuring maybe the driver was just tired or trying to fiddle with their heat controls. Nothing dramatic, but after a minute or two, their brake lights flared, and they gently rolled off onto the shoulder. No hazards, no sudden movements, just pulled over like they were done driving for the night. I slowed to a crawl and passed them slowly, glancing over. There was someone in the driver's seat. I couldn't see much of their face, just that they weren't looking at me. Their head was turned toward the passenger side window, shoulders squared, hands still on the wheel, no one else in the car. The engine was still running. I drove past, eyebrows furrowed. I remember thinking it felt off, Not enough to freak me out, but just strange. The kind of thing you tell yourself you'll report when you have service again, even though part of you already knows you won't. I told myself maybe they were waiting for someone, or just needed to stop for a second. About 10 minutes later, it happened again. Another car ahead of me. Same make. Same dull tan paint. Same cracked taillight on the left side. Same slight weaving in the lane. I felt this hollow thud deep in my chest, like something had fallen out of place inside me. My first thought was that maybe the first car had somehow pulled ahead of me, but that didn't make sense. There were no exits, no U-turns, no intersections where someone could have looped back, and I hadn't stopped. I hadn't even slowed down much. Still, I stayed behind the second car and watched. It drove the same way. A little too loose, a little too soft on the wheel. Then the brake lights blinked, and it eased onto the shoulder. No hazards. Same exact behavior. I passed slowly again. Same posture in the driver's seat. Same turned head, same empty passenger side. Same eerie stillness. That's when my hands started to sweat. Not a dramatic panic, but this creeping tension that moved into my chest and stayed there, heavy and cold. I couldn't stop looking at the road ahead. Couldn't stop thinking about the angles, the timing, the geography. There was no way this was a coincidence. The next few miles, I just stared at the lines in the road, blinking way too often, trying to keep my breathing steady. I didn't know what to do. I just kept driving because what else was there? Then I noticed lights behind me. A car, close, too close. I hadn't seen them appear. No headlights coming up gradually. They were just suddenly there in my rear view, bright and way too near. I didn't want to speed up, but I did. They sped up too. I tapped the brakes lightly, just enough to signal. They matched me. I changed speed. So did they. They didn't pass, didn't fall back. I remember gripping the wheel so tightly it felt like my knuckles were going to pop. The road curved and narrowed in places, and the whole time, that car stayed right behind me, almost like it was tethered to my bumper. And then my headlights hit something. Another car on the right shoulder. Same tan color, same shape, same cracked tail light. Third time. It wasn't moving this time. It wasn't weaving or pulling over. It was just parked. I slowed again, heart knocking around in my chest. As I passed, I saw the driver's silhouette again. Still, still, still. But this time, their window was down, and their hand was resting on the edge of the door. Not waving, not hanging loose. Just resting there, still and pale against the dark of the car. I looked away. Just stared straight ahead and drove. I didn't see the car behind me anymore. At some point during that slow pass, it disappeared. No headlights, no taillights. Gone like it had never been there. For a few seconds, I actually felt relief. And then I looked forward again and slammed the brakes. The sedan, the same sedan, was in my lane, not moving. Parked diagonally, blocking both directions. No lights, no signs. Just sitting there like a barrier. My tires skidded, catching just before impact. I stopped with maybe 6 feet to spare. I sat there, frozen. There wasn't anyone in the car. Or if there was, they were crouching down, hiding. I didn't move. Then headlights came on behind me. I looked in the rear view. Same car, now blocking me from both ends. I don't know how long I sat there. 5 minutes maybe. Could have been 10. Engine running, heat on, heart pounding so hard it drowned out the podcast still playing quietly in the background. I didn't honk, didn't flash my lights. I didn't even unlock the doors. And nobody moved. No one got out. Then, eventually, the car in front of me started moving. Slowly, silently, it rolled forward and drifted back onto the shoulder and off the road. I didn't wait. I floored it. Didn't care about the ice or my tires or the weird squeak coming from under the hood. I passed the rear car without looking into it. Didn't check to see who was inside, or even if someone was. I didn't look in the rearview mirror again until I hit Linden. Rolled into the gas station at 12:23, pulled up to the first pump, and just sat there. Eventually, I went inside and stood there by the coffee machine, still gripping my keys like they were going to float away if I let go. My phone finally caught a bar of signal. I called the state police, told them what I saw, gave them the highway marker and my best guess at the mileage. They called me back the next day, said they didn't find anything, and no one matches the description. I was 22 when it happened. I'd just left my Uncle Rich's place in Detroit after spending a couple of days helping him fix up his garage. He's getting older, and I figured I could lend a hand while catching up. It was early December, right before everything freezes solid out there. I was somewhere between Grand Rapids and Ludlow, on one of those long, narrow two-lane roads that carve through farmland and patchy woods. It's not a fast route, but I always preferred it. No traffic, no semi-trucks blowing past you, and usually no cops, which I'll admit was part of the appeal. In the back seat, August was curled into a tight little ball, his chin resting on the seat cushion. He's a black lab, 5 years old, with that mellow old man energy even as a puppy. I'd brought him along because he hates being boarded, and besides, he loves the snow. He was snoring lightly, breath fogging the glass with every exhale. Occasionally, his paws twitched like he was dreaming about chasing something. The drive was quiet. I had the heater going, low, and the radio tuned to some fuzzy station playing old rock hits. The road felt emptier than usual, like even the deer were hunkering down early. Around the 4th hour in, I saw it. A set of hazard lights flickering dimly up ahead. A vehicle pulled off to the shoulder, maybe 20 yards ahead. It looked like an older SUV, early 2000s or so, silver or maybe beige, hard to tell under the grime and haze. There wasn't any steam coming out of it, no smashed up front end, nothing like that. Just sitting there, lights blinking into the dark. A person was standing beside it, waving both arms. Big, broad gestures. Not the casual hey of someone spotting a friend, but more like full-on flagging. I slowed down, not slamming on the brakes, just easing up. Rolled my window halfway and leaned toward it. Everything all right? It was a kid, maybe 16. 17 tops, skinny build, wearing a light hoodie and a zip-up jacket, both of which looked way too thin for how cold it was getting. He had no gloves either. His hands were red, practically shaking. He stepped up toward my window and said his phone had died and asked if I had a charger. I said I did, but it was USB-C. Figured he'd nod or say thanks anyway. But instead, he just sort of stared at me, like the words didn't fully land. Then he asked if I could give him a lift to the next gas station. Said it wasn't far, 5 miles up, is what he said. I remember that specifically because it's the kind of phrase that sticks when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you realize you haven't passed anything in a while. I hesitated. Not out of fear at first, just basic instinct. I wasn't thrilled about letting a stranger into my truck, but he looked so cold, blue lips, hunched shoulders. I glanced in the rear view to see August, figuring he'd keep things in check. That's when August lifted his head and let out this growl, low, serious. The kind of sound that has weight behind it. It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a threat. August never growls. Not at dogs, not at people, not even at the vacuum. I turned to look at him, and he was rigid, ears forward, eyes locked on the kid through the glass. That changed something. The kid must have felt it too, because he took a small step back, hands up like I'd pulled a weapon on him. "It's cool," he said quickly, voice flat. "I'll wait for someone else." And then he just turned, started walking slowly back toward his SUV, but didn't get in. Just kind of stood near it, hands stuffed in his pockets, looking off into the woods like he was thinking about something else entirely. I rolled the window up and drove off, slow at first. I kept checking my mirrors. 2 minutes later, headlights appeared behind me. Same SUV. I felt it before I processed it. That slow, prickly sensation that something wasn't sitting right. The SUV stayed back at first, maybe 2 or 3 car lengths. Then it pulled closer and closer, until I couldn't see his headlights, just blinding bright, filling my mirrors. I tapped my brakes, not hard, just enough to say, "Back off." He didn't. August sat up again, no growl this time. Just ears up, body tense, eyes locked on the rear window like he was watching something approach. I started speeding up a little. Not too much. The road was slick, and my tires were decent but not miracle workers. I took a right onto a smaller road I remembered. It curved through thicker trees and had fewer mailboxes. I figured if this guy was just impatient or trying to pass, he'd peel off. But he didn't. He followed. That's when it really hit me. I hadn't passed a gas station at all, not even a closed one. No signage, no lit-up pumps in the distance, nothing. Just long stretches of snowy dark and trees. I took another turn. This road was narrower, less traveled. The snow looked untouched. The kind of road that doesn't get plowed unless someone complains. Then his lights disappeared. At first I thought he'd turned off, or maybe slid out. But then I saw it, tire tracks ahead of me. Fresh, clean lines in the snow. The road curved and sloped down, and at the bottom another car was waiting. No lights on, just a faint outline, parked sideways across the road, blocking the path. I hit the brakes, slid halfway down the hill before stopping. The engine made this soft, ticking sound like it was nervous too. I scanned the car. Didn't see anyone, no movement, no fog on the windows. Then August growled again. This time, it didn't stop. I threw it into reverse, but the tires didn't catch right away. I eased up and tried again, just managing to climb a little before those same headlights flared behind me. The SUV had pulled in silently. It clicked its lights off. Everything went black. I didn't move, couldn't. Then someone stepped out of the trees, left side of the road. A few seconds later, another figure emerged from the right. Both wore thick coats. Both had those blank white masks, smooth, empty faces. Like something from a theater department's leftover prop bin. They didn't run, didn't speak. Just walked toward me slowly, one from the front, one from the back. I dropped the truck into drive and slammed the gas. The tires spun and caught, launching me forward a few feet before slipping again. I turned the wheel hard left, trying to angle toward the shoulder. The one in front reached into his coat. I didn't wait. I cranked the wheel and floored it. We slid sideways and smashed through something. I think a wooden fence or post, and then suddenly we were bouncing over uneven ground, scraping branches, climbing over roots. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead, but I kept going. Eventually, the brush thinned out, and the tires hit solid road again. Not the one we came from, a different road entirely. I had no idea where it led. I didn't care. I drove for 10 minutes without stopping. It was just past 10 on a Tuesday night, and I was driving north on Route 47. That road cuts through the middle of nowhere like someone just drew a line on the map and decided it was good enough. I was coming back from a site visit for work. I'd taken a last-minute contract inspecting modular builds for a construction firm out of Larchwell. Most of the time, it was simple checklists, photos, reports, but the second site had issues, structural ones. I stayed later than I should have, walking them through corrections. By the time I wrapped up, the sun was long gone and the snow had started falling thick. I should have booked a room. Any other day, I would have. But I was stubborn. I wanted to sleep in my own bed. The drive home was a little over 2 hours, mostly rural highway. Seemed manageable. I grabbed a coffee, topped off the tank, and told myself I'd take it slow. The snow didn't help. It had that heavy, wet quality that clings to your wipers and turns everything outside the windshield into a smear of white and gray. The road was still passable, just slick enough to keep me under the speed limit. Not a single plow in sight. There was something oddly calming about it at first. Just me, the wipers, the hum of tires over snow, that steady rhythm of headlight beams cutting through the dark. After a while, it almost lulled me into this focused autopilot, until I saw him. He was standing just off the shoulder, near a guardrail, tall, motionless, wearing a long dark coat that looked way too thin for the weather. He didn't have his thumb out, wasn't walking, just standing there, facing the road like he'd been waiting for something. I passed him too fast to get a clear look, but something about it didn't sit right. There wasn't a car anywhere nearby, no hazards blinking, no tracks in the snow leading up to where he stood. He was just there, I probably would have written it off if it had just been the one. But then, not even 2 minutes later, I passed another one. Same height, same coat, standing near a mile marker. Turned slightly away this time, but still not moving. I instinctively glanced in the rearview mirror, but the snow behind me swallowed the road like a curtain. I couldn't even make out my own taillights. And then I saw the third. He was standing directly under one of those old humming street lamps. The light hit him from an angle, casting this long, angled shadow across the snow. I slowed down just enough to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Could have been a sign or a post. Could have been snow buildup on a fence. But just as I came up on him, he tilted his head, only slightly, just a few degrees. But it was deliberate. That single motion, that slow, unnatural turn, made every hair on my arm stand up. I didn't stop. I didn't check the mirror this time. I just pressed the gas a little harder and kept my eyes locked on the road ahead. In the next 15 minutes, I saw 3 more of them. Each one was alone. Each one standing just off the edge of the road, never quite in the same spot, sometimes on the shoulder, sometimes off in a ditch, once half hidden behind a broken fence. Always that same coat. Always that same height, never facing quite the same direction. And not once did I see a single car near them. It started to feel like they weren't standing there until I got close. Like they were only real when I was within range. By the time I hit mile marker 113, I noticed something else. My fuel gauge had dropped faster than it should have. Way faster. I had filled the tank right before I left the last site. Full fill up, even kept the receipt in the passenger seat. But the needle was already dipping below a quarter. I hadn't even driven 90 miles. I reached for my phone. No service. No signal. Not even that little red emergency icon. The next service exit was another 12 miles out. I turned the heat down, both to conserve gas and because my palms were sweaty despite the cold. I was gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone white. That's when I saw one standing in the median. He was facing me head-on this time, not angled or turned. Just standing between the 2 lanes like a statue, coat hanging straight down, unmoving. As I passed, my high beams lit up his face, pale, expressionless, and wrong. Not deformed, not dramatic, just off in a way I couldn't place. His eyes were black in the light, not reflecting, just dark. I passed him. I couldn't stop myself from checking the mirror. He was gone. I didn't see him step away or fade back into the snow. He was just not there anymore. 1 second, a figure in the lights. The next, nothing. My chest clenched hard. I felt like someone had tied a belt around my lungs and yanked. For a solid mile, I drove in absolute silence. No music, no thoughts. Just this growing, creeping dread curling up the back of my neck. And then my headlights flickered. Not completely off, just a quick stutter. Once, then again, like something glitching. In that split second between the flickers, someone stepped into the road. I don't mean appeared, I mean stepped, mid-stride, right across the center line, in the beam of my lights. I slammed the brakes so hard I felt the seatbelt crush into my chest. The car skidded sideways, tires catching patches of slush, the back end drifting out slightly before I managed to correct. When I finally stopped, the road ahead was empty again. No figure, no movement, just snow falling silently around me. My hands were shaking so badly I had to let go of the wheel for a second and press them to my legs to steady them. Then I saw them footprints. Human. Bare, crossing right in front of the car. 5 toes, clear as day in the snow, leading off the shoulder into the woods. I didn't move. Didn't even breathe at first, and then I heard it. One knock. Sharp, flat, right on the rear window. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to turn around. I shifted into drive and floored it. The tires spun for a second before catching. I was already up to 50 before I even blinked again. I didn't check the mirrors. I didn't look at anything but the road, just white lines, snow, and the blur of trees on either side. At mile marker 122, I finally saw the glowing green of a gas station sign. Pulled off without even signaling, took the turn too fast, slid slightly into the lot. I left the car running and half jogged to the door. The guy behind the counter looked up like I'd just walked in bleeding. I probably looked worse. I asked if their security cameras worked. He said they should, but their server had crashed a few days ago and no one had come out to fix it yet. Figures. I filled up, used the bathroom, washed my hands until the hot water ran out. 5 minutes, maybe more. Just trying to stop the shaking. When I got back in the car, I tilted the rearview mirror all the way up so I couldn't see anything behind me. Drove the rest of the way home like that. Dome light on, windows fogged. Every time I passed a tree too close to the shoulder, I flinched. That was 5 years ago. I haven't taken that highway since. This happened a few years back, in early February, when I was still doing freelance renovation jobs in the Hudson Valley. I had a decent loop of regular clients out in places like Silver Hollow, New Ashford, and that stretch of cabins around Glimmerstone Lake. That night, I'd been working on a kitchen remodel just north of Haywood Falls. I didn't leave until almost 11. I remember looking at the time and thinking I should have charged her overtime. Snow had been coming down since around dusk. Not heavy, just that constant, silent kind that builds up without you noticing until the roads are slick. Everything was white, soft, and quiet by the time I pulled onto the main road. The route home took me through a long wooded stretch, State Road 94, which cuts through about 12 miles of nothing but forest and the occasional empty cabin. It's not the kind of road you want to break down on in winter. Cell service is spotty at best, and if you don't know where the turnoffs are, you'll miss them. I'd only been driving about 20 minutes when I noticed a pair of headlights behind me. They weren't right on me, just hanging back, matching my speed. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe another contractor heading back from a job, or someone visiting one of the cabins along the ridge. But something about the way those lights kept their distance started to bother me. I tried speeding up a bit. They sped up too. Then I tapped the brakes, just slightly. Not enough to slow down much, just enough to see if they'd react. They did. That's when the hairs on my arms started to rise. I can't explain it, but there's a particular kind of unease when you realize someone's watching you without revealing themselves. No other cars were out, no towns for miles. Just those headlights and mine carving parallel paths through the dark snow-covered road. So I made a quick turn onto Lakeside Loop Road, which winds around Galloway Lake. I figured, if they weren't following me deliberately, they'd keep going straight. The loop reconnects with the highway later, so it wasn't like I was getting lost. For a minute, it worked. The headlights didn't turn with me. I remember letting out this awkward laugh, part relief, part embarrassment, like, great job freaking yourself out over nothing. Then, just before I curved around the north end of the lake, I saw them again in the mirror, closer now. There weren't any intersections they could have used to catch up. The only explanation was that they'd pulled off somewhere dark and waited. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but my stomach had already made the decision before my brain could. Something was wrong. The snow started picking up. I felt the tires slide a little on a bend. My wipers were icing up at the edges, and the heater couldn't keep up with the cold creeping in. But I didn't dare pull over. The car stayed a fixed distance behind me, never dropping back, never creeping up, just always there. Eventually, I hit Old Route 42. It's this older road that parallels the interstate but cuts through a valley, with even fewer houses along it. I knew that about 10 miles ahead, it connected to a gas station with decent lighting. I told myself I'd drive until I got there. Still no cell service, still that car. A few miles in, I rounded a curve and spotted something that made me lift my foot off the gas. A car was parked just off the road, hazard lights blinking in the snow. It was half in the lane, half pushed up onto a sloping embankment. I slowed down, thinking maybe they were stuck or slid out. But as I got closer, I saw the driver's door was open, just swinging slightly in the wind. No one inside, and this part didn't register right away, but there were no footprints. Not on the road, not in the snow nearby. Nothing. Then the headlights behind me went dark. That's when I turned off my own engine. Just wanted to hear, I guess. Silence. No wind, no voices, no engines. just that soft tick-tick of snow hitting metal. I looked in the mirror. That same car just sitting there, headlights off, still, watching. Something about that moment, I can't explain it. It felt staged, or rehearsed, like I'd stepped into a scene that had been set up for me. I put the car in reverse, slowly, trying to keep traction. I figured maybe I could back out, find another road, anything. I turned the wheel slightly and then, flash. High beams. Just once. Bright, fast, blinding. Then nothing. I sat frozen. I didn't know what I was supposed to do next. I got out of the car. My boots sank into the fresh snow with that soft crunch. My breath came out in clouds. I took a few steps toward them, toward the car that had been following me, but something made me stop. The parked car ahead was still running. I hadn't noticed that before, but the engine made these steady, soft sounds, and the exhaust was puffing into the air like shallow breathing. I turned and walked toward it instead. The interior was empty, keys still in the ignition, dashboard lights casting that faint green glow. No purse, no phone, no sign anyone had ever been there, except that thudding from the trunk, soft, wet, rhythmic, not mechanical. Definitely not the exhaust or the engine. I leaned closer, trying to tell myself it was just snow slipping off a branch, hitting the metal. Or maybe something shifting inside, but it had a pulse to it, like something inside was moving, breathing. Then I heard a car door shut. I spun around. Both cars, mine and the one behind, looked the same. Doors closed, no one visible. I backed away slowly, then ran. I threw myself into my car, locked the doors, and jammed the key in the ignition. My fingers were stiff and clumsy. I barely got it into gear. I tried edging around the abandoned car. The tires spun, caught, jerked sideways. I almost slid into a snowbank, but I made it. As I cleared the bend, the headlights behind me came on again, full brightness, blinding, no hesitation. I drove until my hands cramped around the wheel. Didn't stop until I saw a fluorescent diner sign glowing ahead through the snow like a lifeline. I pulled into the lot, parked across 2 spots, and ran inside. Only 2 people in there. A young waitress with her hair in a braid and a man in his 60s sipping coffee at the counter. I must have looked half crazed, because they both stared as I stumbled in. I tried to explain, asking if anyone else had come through. A car, a man, anything. They both shook their heads. I took the booth furthest from the window, facing the parking lot. My car sat alone out there under a dusting of snow. I ordered coffee just to stay upright. I didn't touch it. An hour passed. Nobody else pulled in. The road outside stayed empty. Eventually, I decided I had to leave. I pushed the door open and walked out. There, parked so close to my driver's side it was practically kissing the door, was the other car. Same shape, same fogged windows, engine silent. I got in on the passenger side and slid across, heart hammering the whole time. I didn't look at it. I didn't want to see what was or wasn't inside. I drove 40 miles south to a motel outside Eston Hollow. Paid cash. Parked in a different lot and walked 2 blocks back to my room. Didn't sleep. Sat in the chair by the window. Lights on, curtain open. In the morning, I went to check on the car. It was gone. Not just missing, gone without a trace. No tire tracks, no footprints, nothing. The snow on the lot was untouched, like no one had parked there in days. I reported it stolen, gave a statement. The officer nodded a lot and wrote things down, but I could tell he didn't buy half of what I was saying. 3 days later, they found my car. It was right back on Route 42, parked exactly where I'd stopped that night. Same direction, same angle. The trunk was open and empty. Now, I keep my tank full. I drive during the day, no matter what it costs me in time. And if I see a car stopped on the road in the middle of the night, especially in the snow, I don't stop. I don't even slow down. I was 17 when it happened. I was driving my cousin Oliver home after dinner at our uncle's place in Fox Hill. He lived pretty far out, half an hour outside of Milstead, near the border of a nature preserve. We'd ended up hanging around way later than planned. Nothing big. Just one of those nights where time slips past you. We played cards, drank warm cider, joked about stuff we hadn't talked about in years. It felt good, easy. I remember thinking on the way out that it had been a while since I'd laughed like that. So we're in the car, idling at the bottom of the drive, and Oliver suddenly asks if I can take him to his friend Marcus's place instead. Said it was only about 10 minutes farther north, just off Route 8. I said sure without really thinking. I'd driven that stretch plenty of times, though not usually in winter. But once we got going, I started to regret it. No traffic. None. The road looked more like a frozen ribbon than something cars were meant to use. The moon was this blurry smudge behind low clouds, and everything outside the headlights looked still and sharp, like a photograph. Even the trees felt too quiet. I didn't say anything, but I could feel my shoulders starting to tighten. Oliver, who normally couldn't shut up for 5 minutes, was just staring out the window. About halfway there, he asked if we could swing by Burnett Lake. Didn't give me a reason, just said, "Can we pass it real quick?" His voice was calm, like it wasn't weird to ask. I figured it was something sentimental, as Mom used to take him skating there when we were younger. We hadn't been in years. I nodded and turned off at the next exit. The road to the lake is narrow on a good day, and that night it hadn't been plowed. Not even once. Just packed snow and frozen tire ruts going in who knows how deep. The second we turned, the tires slipped a little. Nothing major, but enough to get my heart rate up. I almost suggested turning around, but we could already see the lot down by the boat launch, so I kept going. I eased the car into a spot facing the lake and left the engine running. Oliver got out without saying anything, shoved his hands into his coat pockets, and walked maybe 10 or 15 feet out. He didn't go far, just stood there, looking at the frozen lake like it was holding some kind of answer he needed. I stayed in the car, tapping my fingers on the steering wheel, glancing at the dashboard clock. After a few minutes, I cracked my window and called his name. He didn't respond, didn't even move. I leaned across the car to open the passenger door and shout louder, but just as I was doing that, he turned and started walking back. That's when I saw it. Another car. It was parked at the far edge of the lot, facing us. A dark sedan. Nothing new, looked a bit older. The kind of car you'd drive past on the street and not remember a second later. It hadn't been there when we pulled in. I'm sure of it. There'd been nothing around. No headlights, no engine noise, no tire crunching in the snow. Just there. Oliver got in the car and closed the door carefully. "Let's go," he said. His voice was flat. No edge to it, but I could tell he'd seen it too. I backed out slow, giving the other car a wide berth, and started heading back up the hill. It didn't move. Then, about halfway up, its headlights snapped on. Still no other cars around. No fresh tire marks. Just ours, and now theirs. They didn't rush. Just started climbing the hill behind us at a casual pace. But it didn't feel casual. I told Oliver to check the plates, see if we could get a number. He twisted around, stared out the back window for a few seconds and said, "There's nothing, no tags." Just a black bumper. I didn't say anything, just kept driving. We turned back onto the main road, heading toward the interstate. They followed, always just far enough back that I couldn't get a clear look at the driver. I tried switching lanes. They mirrored me. I slowed down. They did too. I picked up speed. Still there. I could feel my heartbeat in my hands, like every nerve was wired straight into the steering wheel. We passed a rest stop, one of those tiny ones with vending machines and a single payphone, but the lights were off. It looked dead. I didn't want to stop unless it was somewhere with people. Oliver kept glancing over his shoulder. "Could just be someone heading the same way," he offered, like he didn't even believe it himself. I didn't reply. The road narrowed up ahead. Snow had drifted into the right lane, so I had to ease off the gas. That's when the other car slid over next to us, right into the snow, and matched our speed. Still no look at the driver, just headlights and the outline of a figure. They stayed right beside us. Not close enough to hit, but too close for it to make sense. I kept my eyes forward. Oliver shifted in his seat again. "I think their window's down," he whispered, almost like he didn't mean to say it out loud. I tried to slow down a little more, hoping they'd just go ahead and leave us alone. The moment we dropped back even slightly, their brake lights lit up like they were waiting for it. I swerved onto the shoulder to avoid hitting them, and they sped up again, just enough to stay ahead. Then they slowed again. I wasn't going to lead them home. That was off the table. I knew every turn from here to my driveway, and the idea of them knowing where I lived made my stomach turn. I scanned my brain for anywhere safe and remembered the old ranger station off Route 47. It was usually closed in winter, but I'd heard they left the garage open sometimes for the plows. I cut across 2 lanes and took the next exit fast. Too fast. We skidded a little but stayed on the road. The sedan followed, headlights still steady. They kept back this time. Slower, almost like they were letting us go. I didn't stop to think about it, just kept going, cutting through a couple dark back roads until we hit the turnoff to the station. The lane was covered in snow, but I could make out the outline of the building and the utility shed out back. I pulled into the garage and killed the lights. Oliver jumped out and slammed the door behind him. "We need to call someone," he said. There was no service. We crouched behind a pile of salt bags, backs pressed to the cold concrete wall, trying to stay low and quiet. I peeked out once, just barely enough to see the sedan parked at the base of the hill. No movement. Engine idling. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then the engine cut. I held my breath. I didn't even realize I was doing it. I just froze. No footsteps. No talking. Just silence. Then movement. I saw a figure pass in front of the garage opening. Not fast. Just a steady walk. Alone. No flashlight. Wearing a long coat. They didn't look around. Didn't try to come inside. Just stood near the trees, facing our direction. I grabbed a rusted wrench off the workbench and stayed low. I could hear Oliver's breathing, short and shaky. The person didn't move for a long time. Then, finally, they turned and walked back toward the road. A minute later, the car engine started again. It backed up, turned slowly, and vanished down the hill. We didn't leave, not right away. We stayed in that garage until the sky started turning pink behind the trees. When it was light enough to feel safe, we walked back down the hill. The car was gone. No sign it had ever been there except the second set of tire tracks. Tracks that didn't loop or turn. Just a single line going in and then out. Oliver never mentioned Burnett Lake again. But ever since that night, I don't take back roads after dark. Doesn't matter how short the detour is or how well I think I know the route. If the road's empty and the lights are few, I stay off it. I'd left Red Bridge around 10 that Friday night, hoping to reach my sister Marla's place before 1 in the morning. She lived a few hours south in a town called Kingsley, tucked into one of those snowy belts where the roads turn into ice rinks around mid-December. Neither of us could get away on Christmas Day, so we planned to do the whole holiday thing: early presents, cinnamon rolls, bad Netflix movies. I'd thrown a duffel in the back seat after work, packed with a sweater I'd probably never wear and some stupid gag gifts I knew she'd love. Highway 87 is one of those long, hypnotic stretches where you could drive for miles without seeing another soul. Trees on both sides, rolling hills, occasional fields hidden under snow. Just the hum of tires and whatever's on the radio. I was maybe an hour into the drive when I noticed the car behind me. 3 car lengths back, maybe a little more. I didn't think much of it at first. It was late, sure, but not so late that the roads were dead. It just stayed there. I went another few miles and checked again. Still there. Same exact distance. Headlights steady. I changed lanes briefly. There were only 2, but I slid left to pass a slow semi, then drifted back. The car behind me mirrored everything. Lane changes. Speed. Braking. That's when I started paying closer attention. I tapped the brakes a few times. Not hard, just enough to signal I was watching the road conditions, and the headlights behind me blinked slightly with each tap. Same rhythm. I slowed a little, curious. They slowed too. Not drastically, just enough to stay in that same 3-car cushion. There was no traffic. No exits for miles. The road curved through a forested pass that opened into a flat valley. The kind of place where if something went wrong, it would take a long time for help to show up. No gas stations, no houses, just snowbanks and silence. I told myself it was fine, just coincidence. Someone else heading home for the holidays. Still, it was bothering me enough that I switched on the radio. Static. I flipped stations until I landed on some soft jazz, just for the background noise. Even that didn't help. After another 10 miles of playing this weird, silent chase, I saw one of those little roadside rest areas coming up on the right. Just a basic pullover spot. 2 picnic tables frozen under ice, a vending machine shelter with flickering fluorescent lights, and one of those sad, locked bathrooms with a sign taped to the door saying, "Out of order." I figured I'd stop. Let them pass. Maybe grab a snack or stretch my legs. I took the exit and rolled into the lot. The car behind me followed. That was the moment where things shifted from weird coincidence to something colder. I parked near the edge of the lot, close to a line of bare trees dusted with snow. Left the engine running, hands resting on the steering wheel. The other car didn't pull beside me, didn't park. It just sat there, maybe 40 feet away. Headlights still on, engine humming. The windows were tinted. Couldn't see anything inside. I waited. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. Then, without warning, they backed up. Slowly, creepily slow. Then they inched forward until we were window to window. Their passenger side lined up with my driver's side. Still no movement inside. Then the passenger window rolled down. I hesitated, then lowered mine halfway. Cold air slipped in. The guy leaned over from the driver's seat. Looked normal. Mid-30s maybe. Short dark hair, zip jacket, clean shaven. His smile was easy, too easy. "Hey," he said, casual as anything. "I think you dropped something out the window back near the summit. It looked like a scarf or hat." I blinked. I don't think I did, but thanks." He nodded like he expected that. "Could be wrong. Just figured you'd want to know." I forced a tight smile, already halfway closing the window. Something about his voice, it was too calm, too polite. Like someone playing at being helpful. Then he added, "You heading toward Kingsley?" "I'm driving the same way." The way he said it made something coil in my stomach. I didn't answer. Just finished rolling up the window and stared ahead. I didn't look at him. Didn't move. After a second, he gave this small nod like some kind of understanding had passed between us and drove off. No hurry. Just glided out of the lot and disappeared onto the road. I waited until the lights were completely gone. Then I got back on the highway. Tried to calm down. Told myself he was just weird. Not dangerous. Maybe too friendly, maybe awkward. That's all. But 15 minutes later, he was behind me again. Same car, same distance, same rhythm. I had no idea how. I hadn't seen any exits or turnoffs. No way he could have gotten back ahead of me or even circled around. And yet, there he was, like he'd never left. At that point, my heart started beating higher in my throat. I turned off the jazz, pulled in a slow breath, checked my rear view again, still there. I took the next exit I saw. No idea where it led, didn't care. It turned into a narrow residential street with no signs, just driveways half buried in snow, porch lights off, mailboxes crooked from plow hits. I drove slowly, pretending I knew where I was going. No sudden moves, just a calm loop around. He didn't follow into the neighborhood, but the second I merged back onto the highway, there he was again. It was like he'd been waiting on the ramp. This time, I kept my phone in my lap. No bars, not a single one. Just the empty signal icon and the soft glow of the screen lighting up my hand. I drove like that for another half hour. Every change in my speed he matched, never aggressive, just tracking me. Finally, I passed a sign for a 24-hour gas station and decided I couldn't keep playing this game. I needed lights, people, anything. I pulled into the lot, parked by the pumps, and shut the engine off. He stayed out on the curb, car idling, headlights off now, just watching. Inside the station, The guy behind the counter was maybe 19. Hoodie with the sleeves bunched up, one earbud in. He didn't look up when I came in. I stood by the gum racks for a minute, pretending to read labels. Then I stepped up to the counter and leaned in, quiet but firm. "Hey, I know this sounds weird, but someone's been following me since the rest stop. He's in a gray Corolla. Still out there." The kid finally looked up. His face didn't change much. "Gray Corolla?" he asked. I nodded, already dreading the answer. "You're the second one tonight," he said. My mouth went dry. "Second?" "Yeah, another woman stopped in earlier. Said a guy in that car was asking about her. Came in saying he lost his girlfriend out near Summit Hill. Asked if she'd come through here." I stared at him. He went on. Said he wanted to leave a note for her in case she showed up. I told him no. Then he reached behind the counter and handed me a piece of paper, folded once. I took it outside before I opened it. Cold air hit my face. I unfolded the note with both hands shaking. It said, "I'll be right behind you." That was it. No name, no number, just that. I didn't even stop to think. Got back in the car, started it, and drove. Not fast, not erratic, just steady 35 the whole way. He followed the entire time. When I saw the sign for the county sheriff's substation, I turned in hard, didn't signal, didn't care, rolled straight into the lot. He kept going, lights off, just glided past the building and disappeared around the next corner. Inside, I showed them the note, gave a full report. They were professionals. They offered to send a patrol car to trail me the last 20 minutes to Marlis. I said yes. That was 2 years ago. Now, I won't drive at night unless I absolutely have to. It was just after New Year's, sometime around midnight. I'd spent the evening at my cousin Elisa's place way up in northern Vermont. She lives in one of those little towns where the only bar is also the diner and the grocery store has a single aisle for produce and birthday cards. We'd eaten, played board games, had a few drinks, nothing wild. By the time I left, there was a thick coat of snow on everything. The roads hadn't been cleared in hours, and it was still coming down. But I felt okay driving in it. I've done the Vermont back roads before. My phone had almost no service, but GPS was holding steady, so I figured I'd make it to Fairview by 1. That was the only place left along the route where I knew a gas station stayed open late. It was sort of a loose plan. Get there, fill up, keep driving. I hadn't told Elise I was heading out yet. Didn't want to make it a whole thing. The road was dead quiet. I didn't see a single car, coming or going. Just snow building up at the edges of the road, the occasional flicker of headlights reflected in my rear view from signs I'd already passed. I kept the heat up, had some low music going, not anything dramatic, just background noise so I wouldn't doze off. I was maybe 10 miles in when I saw a car pulled off on the shoulder. A small sedan, older model, blinkers on. I probably wouldn't have noticed it if the hazards weren't flashing. Snow dulls everything. Lights, sound, even distance. You don't hear things approaching, they just show up. I slowed down and pulled over a little ways ahead of it. Not close enough to spook anyone, but close enough to offer help if they needed it. There's something about seeing a car like that in the middle of nowhere. It gets your mind going. Could be a flat, or they slid off. Could be nothing. But also, what if someone's out there freezing, hoping someone pulls over? So I got out and walked back toward it. The car was idling. I could hear the low hum once I got close. The windshield had a lopsided scrape on it, like someone had tried to clear it with their sleeve. But there was nobody inside. That threw me a bit. I checked again. Front seat, back seat, empty. Engine still running. A thin stream of heat was coming from the vents. There was a coffee cup in the holder, half full, no lid. I waited. Not long, maybe 30 seconds. Just long enough to feel like I wasn't jumping to conclusions. I looked around, expecting someone to come out of the woods or maybe walk up from the ditch on the other side, but nothing moved. No sounds, just snow falling. I knocked on the driver's window. Nothing. Opened the door. The dome light came on. It was warm inside, too warm for someone to just walk away from it. I backed off a bit, tried to scan the trees across the road, called out a couple times. Still nothing. Then I figured, all right, maybe they went to get help. Maybe they left it running for warmth. It didn't really make sense, but what else could I do? I figured I'd try calling the non-emergency line once I got service again. Let someone know it was there. I just started turning to head back to my car when a man walked out of the woods across the street. Not running, not stumbling, just walking in a straight line toward me like he'd spotted me through the trees, and this was all normal. He looked about early 30s, maybe a bit younger. No jacket, just a gray hoodie and jeans, both soaked. His hair looked wet too, stuck to his forehead. He didn't even seem cold. He made eye contact with me immediately. Didn't look startled or confused, just focused. I said, "Hey, is this your car?" He nodded once, slow, didn't speak until he got closer. Then he said, "You should get back in your car." That's all, just like that. Flat, but not unfriendly. It took me a second. I asked him, why? He said, "You're going to miss your turn if you stay here. The next exit isn't marked." And that's when I started getting this low, buzzing unease again. Not panic, but that weird back of your neck alert. Because he wasn't wrong. That route did have a weird, unmarked turnoff, and GPS could absolutely lose it if the signal dropped. I'd messed it up once before, but I hadn't told him where I was headed. And I hadn't said anything yet. Not about my route. Not about Fairview. Nothing. I asked, "How do you know where I'm going?" He gave me this tired little half smile like he didn't want to explain, like it was obvious to him even if it wasn't to me. Then he said, "You were going to stop at the gas station in Layton, right? They'll be closed if you don't leave soon." That stopped me cold. I hadn't mentioned Layton. Not to Elise. Not on text. No one even knew I was on the road. I told him I had to go, turned to leave. He added, "Don't go your usual way. Take Route 29. The bridge up ahead is iced over. There's no bridge on that road." I knew that. I've driven it for years. I didn't answer him. I just got in my car, locked the doors, and watched him in the rear view. He didn't follow. Didn't even flinch. Just stood there, snow landing on his shoulders, blinking slow. I pulled away carefully. My tires slid once as I turned back onto the road. Still no headlights, no traffic in either direction. After a couple minutes, the GPS froze, then disappeared completely. No signal. But then I saw it. The side road I was supposed to take. No markings, just a snow-covered arc branching off. I recognized the curve. I hesitated for half a second, then took my usual turn. His voice was still in my head though. The way he said it like it was already decided. A few miles in, red and blue lights lit up the snow ahead. A snowplow had spun out and was blocking both lanes. Sheriff was there, waving people back. He looked tired, like he'd been standing in the cold too long. I rolled down the window and asked how long the road had been closed. He said, "About 10 minutes, which meant if I'd stayed by that car just a little longer, I would have made it through, before the crash." I turned around and took the detour through Layton. The gas station was still open, just barely. I filled up, hands kind of shaky now. I kept thinking about that guy, about how he'd said it like he wasn't warning me, just stating a fact. And that bridge, the one he claimed was iced over, there is no bridge on that road. I've checked maps, driven it again in daylight, nothing. A few days later, I told Elise the whole thing. She didn't even look surprised. Just said, "I think that same car's been parked out there since last winter." Apparently, people in town sometimes mention it in local forums, see it off and on in the same spot. Engine running, no one inside. But no one ever talks about seeing a man. I checked online, dug through posts and threads and blurry photos. There were references to the car. A couple people thought it was creepy. Some thought it was just abandoned. But nobody mentioned a soaked man in a hoodie. There's this road that runs from Birchfield out to Marlow, Route 58, and once you pass the edge of town, it's just miles of empty backcountry. I've made that trip more times than I can count, especially that year. My Aunt Carla had a hip replacement around Thanksgiving, and I'd been visiting her every couple of weeks. Her house was just past Marlow, about an hour and a half from me if the roads were clear. I always brought her groceries, fixed little things around the place. That night, I got a late start, stayed too long after work, didn't leave until close to 7. It was already pitch black, and I tossed an old heated blanket in the back seat just in case something happened. The car was running fine, but you never know once you're out past the last gas station. The snow hadn't started falling yet, but you could feel it in the air. The sky had that weird stillness to it, and the shoulder of the road was already caked in old, crusted snow. I drove slow, trying to avoid the patches where the ice had been scraped unevenly. Every so often, the tires would pull a little to the right, catching a rut, and I gripped the wheel tighter. About 20 minutes in, I noticed headlights behind me. Not tailgating farther back, but steady. Just far enough that I couldn't see the shape of the car, only the glow. I didn't think much of it at first. That road links 3 counties, and sometimes you see delivery trucks or folks heading home late. But 10 minutes later, they were still there. Same distance. Not closer, not farther. It was odd. I slowed down a bit, curious. Maybe they'd pass. They didn't. They slowed too. That's when I started to feel it in my chest. Just that quiet, creeping kind of unease. Not panic, but the first hint that something's not sitting right. Like when you forget if you left the stove on. It just lingered. Eventually, I reached that old way station around the halfway point. Just a gravel patch and a collapsed building no one's used in years. I pulled over, flicked off my lights, and waited. The car passed a few seconds later. It was a black SUV, maybe a newer model, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. No front plate, and I couldn't make out anything on the back either. Could have been salt covered, I told myself. A lot of plates are unreadable that time of year. They didn't slow down, just kept going. I gave it a minute, then pulled back onto the road, feeling a little foolish for overthinking it. But not 10 minutes later, I saw them again. Same SUV, same paint, same glow of the headlights. Only this time, it was parked off to the right. No lights, just sitting there, engine humming. As I passed, the headlights blinked on, and they pulled out behind me. Smooth, no hesitation. That's when my stomach dropped. Not weird coincidence territory anymore. This was deliberate. I didn't want to panic, but I also didn't want to lead them straight to Carla's place. So I kept driving, hands tight on the wheel, trying to think. There's a side trail about 15 minutes up. A ranger access road that cuts through the woods runs parallel to Route 58 for a few miles before looping back. I'd taken it before during the summer when traffic got bad near the bridge work. It's not paved, but it was my best shot. I took the turn fast, no signal, hoping to catch them off guard. They didn't follow. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like an hour. Kept driving, letting my heart rate come back down. The snow was thicker on that road, packed in where no one had driven it for weeks, but I knew where the trail widened out into a clearing where the old ranger station used to be. It burned down a while back. Now it's just a flat patch of snow, tire ruts. Maybe some broken cinder block if you kick around. I pulled into that clearing, about ready to circle back and head home. And then my headlights landed on it. The SUV. Same one, parked directly across from me, angled like it was waiting. No lights. Engine running. I froze. There's no other way into that clearing. No side road. No shortcut. Either they knew that trail better than I did, or they'd gotten ahead of me some other way. I still don't know how. One of the doors was cracked open. I threw the car into reverse, too fast, and the back wheels caught a snowbank. I spun halfway and felt the tires sink into the drift. I tried rocking it gently, forward then back, but nothing. I was stuck. That's when I saw the door on the SUV swing wide. A man stepped out, tall, dressed in all dark clothing. Nothing distinct, no logos, no color, just black. He didn't yell, didn't rush, just started walking toward me. Then another man got out, then a third. They walked slow, like they had all the time in the world. I dove into the back seat, ripped open my emergency kit, fingers numb and clumsy, trying to get the flare out. I nearly dropped the matches, but somehow I got it lit right as the first guy reached my front bumper. He didn't move, didn't even blink. The others stopped behind him, spread out just enough that they could move in if they wanted. I held the flare up between us and shouted that I'd called the highway patrol. I hadn't. There's no cell service out there, but I needed to sound like I had something on my side. They didn't respond. Then I heard a sharp crack from behind the car. I turned and there he was, a fourth man, standing on the snowbank just beyond the trees, holding a crowbar in one hand and something else wrapped in canvas in the other. I couldn't see what it was. He tapped the crowbar against my rear bumper. Once, then again. I slammed on the horn and didn't stop. Then, like some kind of miracle, I saw headlights in the trees. Real ones. A patrol car was pulling up the trail. The SUV guys scattered instantly. 2 ran for their vehicle. 1 vanished into the woods. The fourth guy, he didn't even glance at the cruiser. Just stepped back into the trees like he'd been called. I jumped out waving the flare, yelling. The officer stopped, got out fast, started asking questions. I tried to explain, but it came out all wrong. Just fragments. I pointed. I showed him where they'd been, but it was empty. The SUV was gone. No tire tracks. No engine heat in the snow. Nothing but my own skid marks and the steam curling up from my hood. At first, he looked skeptical. I could tell. But when I showed him the dent in my bumper and the tracks where I'd spun out, something shifted. He called it in, stayed with me until a tow truck arrived. Then he followed me all the way back to Birchfield. I filed a report. They said they'd look into it, but no one ever followed up. I'd been doing nighttime delivery gigs for a while by then, a mix of courier work and freelance hauls, mostly up through Nevada and sometimes out into the quieter corners of Oregon and Idaho. That night's job was simple. 2 small packages headed to a client somewhere north of Reno. It was mid-January, and snow had been coming down since the late afternoon. Not a full-on storm, but enough to blur your vision a little and turn the road edges into guessing games. I was about 30 miles in when the GPS dinged and rerouted me off the main highway. It said there was an accident ahead and suggested a faster route. I should have known better. Those alternate paths never really save time unless it's midday, and this one was pulling me into unfamiliar territory. But I wasn't in the mood to argue with tech, so I followed the prompt and turned off onto a narrow 2-lane road. Desmond Ridge Road, that was the name. I remember it clearly now because I looked it up later. At the time, it didn't mean anything, just another cracked rural path that hugged a river and twisted through empty farmland. No lights, no signs of life, just barbed wire fences and skeletal trees slumped under snow. I drove maybe 20 minutes without seeing another car or even a mailbox. Then I saw her. There was a car on the shoulder. Old sedan, dark-colored, hood up, and a woman standing next to it waving in this weirdly slow, controlled way. Not frantic, just deliberate. Her headlights were off. I slowed instinctively. I wasn't trying to play hero or anything. I've just had cars die on me in the middle of nowhere before, and it sucks. I cracked the passenger window as I pulled alongside. She looked maybe mid to late 30s. No jacket, just a thin sweater and jeans. Her cheeks were red from the cold, but she didn't seem panicked. Calm, almost too calm. She leaned down slightly to talk through the gap in the window and said her engine had cut out and her phone was dead. I glanced at my own phone 0 bars. Not surprising. I told her I could give her a ride to the next station or somewhere with service, but she shook her head and said her house was closer. Just 10 minutes down the road, she said, past the ridge, down the slope. I hesitated, but she didn't look dangerous and there was no other traffic in sight. It felt wrong to leave her there in the cold, so I unlocked the door and told her to get in. She climbed in quietly, rubbing her hands together like she was trying to bring some feeling back into them. I asked if she was okay, and she nodded, but there was something tight about the way she moved, like her body was bracing for something. What happened to the car? I asked, just trying to make conversation. She paused before answering. The lights just turned off, she said, all at once. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. The way she said it gave me a chill I couldn't quite place, so we drove in silence for a while. Just the snow ticking against the windshield and the hum of the tires. Eventually, she told me to make a right onto a smaller road. Dirt underneath, mostly covered in snow. It was barely visible, no signage, no tire tracks. I asked if she was sure, and she said yeah, her place was just down the hill. I turned in, but immediately something felt off. The road was tight, the trees pressed in close, and there were no signs of anyone having driven this way recently. No tire tracks, no footprints, not even broken branches or disturbed snow. Then I saw it, her phone screen lighting up. I caught the reflection in the passenger side window. She was texting someone, not just idly typing with purpose. I glanced at the screen just long enough to catch what she wrote. He picked me up. Heading in now. I kept my eyes on the road and said, as casually as I could, "Who's that?" She didn't even look at me. Just locked the screen and gave a small blank smile like she hadn't heard the question. I didn't ask again. We kept driving. The road narrowed even more, barely wider than the car now. The snow muffled everything. No sound except the creaking of branches overhead and the occasional snap of ice under the tires. I pretended to fiddle with the wipers and reached down to pop open the center console. Inside was a flare gun, a flashlight, and a folding knife I kept mostly for opening boxes. Not much, but I felt better having it near my lap than buried in the back. Eventually, the road opened into a clearing. There was no house, no driveway, just a collapsed barn and the charred remains of what looked like a burned-down house. The beams were black, sagging under snow, and the windows were all gone. No footprints, no vehicle, nothing livable. I stopped the car. "This isn't a house," I said. She didn't reply. Just opened the door and stepped into the snow like that was the plan all along. Then she walked around to my side, leaned down, and tapped the glass. "You can come out now," she said, her voice light, like it was some kind of joke. I didn't move. Then I saw someone step out from behind the barn. A man, tall, wearing a sweater like hers. No jacket. Then another figure appeared, and another. They didn't say anything, didn't move fast, just stood there, facing the car, watching. I threw it into reverse and slammed the gas. The wheels spun for a second, snow and dirt flying up in the headlights. Then I caught traction and backed out hard, fishtailing once before straightening. She chased me for maybe 5 steps, arms outstretched, shouting something I couldn't hear through the windows. I didn't look back after that. I stayed focused, hands locked tight on the wheel, heart pounding so loud it felt like it was in my throat. I didn't stop until I hit the pavement again. Since then, I've made one rule for myself: stick to the main roads, no matter what the GPS says. And if I see someone waving on a snowy highway, I keep driving,